Hello, my friends. I'm Eileen, the Mellow Astrologer. For those of you who don't yet know me, I am a second generation evolutionary astrologer. I was trained by my mother, a master astrologer, who actually studied directly under Jeffrey Wolf Green, who is the father of evolutionary astrology. And evolutionary astrology is the practice of astrology based on the soul's evolutionary journey in this lifetime. So that is the frame of reference or orientation from which I will read an individual's chart for consultations. Now, those of you who know me, thank you so much for returning. It's lovely to have you again. I wanted to talk to you today about the third Saturn-Uranus square. Now, I know not all of you are students of astrology, and we can, when describing these aspects, there can be a lot of jargon. So don't get confused by the technicalities. And what I mean by don't get confused is it's fine to just ignore when I use these big words, because I'm going to break everything down and describe the energetic. And that's what I want you to pay attention to. And then if you have a penchant for learning all the jargon and whatnot, great, go for it. I have several freebies on my website that I will link in the description below, and I want you all to check them out because they're awesome. And one is an astrological glossary that I recently created. It's very cool. It's especially for students, but any enthusiast. And this can download to your device, but I printed it out so that I can show you. And it has really good stuff. The house, the sign, the glyph, the dates. It's basically a cheat sheet, okay, for beginners. And I also have an annual Electrifying Astrology freebie, which is essentially the juiciest dates of the year that you do not want to miss astrologically for various reasons. And again, that can download directly to your device, and it links to your digital calendar. So I made it super simple for you. And then you don't miss these important dates like the one I'm talking about right now. So we did have 3 Saturn-Uranus squares this year, and it is on my freebie, like I said. And this final one is on December 23rd. It happens at, I think, 11:34 p.m. So essentially the morning of Christmas Eve, right? And the entirety of 2021 has been characterized by these cosmic events and this cosmic energy. And I'm going to dive into that. But first, I'm going to kind of set the stage so you get an appreciation for all of the different energies that are happening right now. 2022, we don't actually have any exact squares, but they do get extremely close, these two planets, in square in September and October of 2022. So even though it's not exact, we are still under this energy for the entirety of 2022 while Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, okay? So this is really important to just understand that kind of the prevailing energy of our experience right now is this Saturn-Uranus square. Well, what happens just a few days before this final square of 2021? A few things. We have a full moon on Saturday, December 18th. It's around 8:30 p.m. All the times that I mentioned, by the way, are Pacific time. I'm in California, so I use West Coast time. So we have this full moon in Gemini. The full moon is always in the polarity of the sun sign. So the sun is in Sagittarius. The polarity point in the zodiac is Gemini. So full moon in Gemini, which is about communication and learning and how we perceive, and then how we communicate also based on our perceptions. Full moon, 8:30 p.m. Saturday the 18th. And then just 6 hours later, early morning, the 19th, we have Venus turning retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. She's been in Capricorn for quite a while now, and she'll be there for another, she's retrograde for 5 weeks, and then she's still in the sign of Capricorn once she goes direct. So she has a long haul in Capricorn. And so with the full moon happening right when Venus goes direct, I really feel that the flavor of this full moon is going to overlay on this Venus retrograde. And then just 4 days later, we have this final Saturn-Uranus square. And in what I forgot to mention is that before the Saturn-Uranus square on the 21st, we have the winter solstice. The sun ingresses, it moves into the sign of Capricorn. So we got, this is just the last half of December, y'all. I'm not even mentioning what's happened earlier this month, like Neptune going direct, which is a whole video unto itself. But we have full moon, Venus retrograde, winter solstice, Saturn square Uranus. Okay, so all that is, for those of you who don't know, that's kind of a lot in a very short period of time. And the fact that it's happening at the holidays is an even bigger deal because, of course, we are more social during the holidays, and our interactions with families usually occur during the holidays, right? And for a lot of us, some of us, we don't necessarily look forward to the holidays. I personally love the holidays, but I know quite a few people who don't like the holidays for any number of reasons. And then there are people like me who love the holidays, but actually have some negative associations attached to the holidays. And so it can bring up memories or past traumas, etc., right? The holidays, it's kind of a big deal. So the fact that we have so many celestial events happening during this time is something that it should give us all pause and make us stop and think. Okay, so this video is primarily about the Saturn-Uranus square. I'm not going to get into the full moon so much or this Venus retrograde. I do have another video about that aspect, and so I will link to it in the description. But I wanted to mention it because, again, it's setting the stage for this final square of 2021. Now, to understand the square, we have to understand the archetypes of Saturn and the archetypes of Uranus. Saturn is the planet of responsibility and integrity. It's the planet of time. Saturn is considered the lord of karma. And perhaps most significantly, Saturn is very much associated with tradition and legacy and our families, especially multi-generational families. So Saturn tends to be a far-looking energy. It looks far out into the distance because it likes to plan and organize. And it typically has a goal that it wants to achieve. And often those goals are around, what is my legacy? What am I leaving for future generations, particularly my family? So those individuals who are strongly Capricornian, Saturn is the planet that rules the sign of Capricorn, or someone who has a very strong Saturn in their astrological chart, will have these types of concerns, right? They'll be thinking about their great-grandchildren, or they'll be thinking about, we have to have environmental conservation for future generations. It's not just about me. It's not just about this period of time. It is also reflecting on the past. It's very nostalgic. It can get stuck in reflecting on the past, but typically the Saturnian Capricornian energy is concerned with reflecting on the past so that it can learn from the past and apply those lessons to the present and especially the future. Like I said, it can be very nostalgic, however, okay? And it's also, one of the most important aspects of the Saturnian energy is self-reflection and the ability to really look deeply within and to find where things can be different. Okay, this is also similar to the Scorpionic archetype, but it is different because Saturn has to do with where Scorpio excuse me, is concerned with inner limitations. Saturn in Capricorn is concerned with external limitations. So what are you capable of doing, when and why and where and how, and what can you just not do, right? So for example, Americans have a lot of liberties and freedoms that we take for granted, whereas somebody in a different country might not have the same social freedoms or the ability to dress however they please because of cultural taboos. When I was traveling through and living in India, I once made the mistake of wearing shorts to a hospital because I'd been on the beach for so many weeks that I'd forgotten that it was entirely culturally inappropriate to show my legs outside of the beach. And it was kind of an emergency situation. I ended up at a hospital with my significant other at the time who had broken a bone. And it didn't occur to me to bring some pants, right? And I had a very stark reminder that, oh my goodness, my ability to dress as I wanted in the United States is dramatically different when traveling through different countries, right? That's a Saturnian archetype, that limitation that is imposed from external conditions, okay? So that's the Saturn archetype. And now switching over to the Uranian archetype, Uranus is the planet that rules the sign of Aquarius. So often in evolutionary astrology, the ruling planet of a sign has very similar, if not the same, archetypal influences. So it's almost, you can almost say one and the same: Saturn, Capricorn, Uranus, Aquarius, and then also the houses that they represent in the horoscope. I'm not going to go there because it's probably going to be too much. But the Uranian influence is in some ways the opposite of the Saturnian influence. Where Saturn wants tradition and legacy, Uranus wants to break things up and break free and break out of conditioning and boxes and limitations. It is the archetype of liberation to some extent, because it really, that breaking free, it does not want limitations imposed on it. Where Saturn is very forward thinking, Uranus is not just forward thinking, it's like universal mind, almost like a God consciousness. Saturn is the mountain goat at the tippy top of the mountain on its little hooves overlooking a vast area of land. Uranus is the eagle soaring high above. It can see everything, even those things that Saturn cannot. So Uranus is very radical, where Saturn is very conservative. Saturn says we can learn from the past, and let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And where the foundation is good, it should be maintained. It's kind of the, what is the word? Is axiom the right word? Of don't fix it unless it's broken. Uranus is like, who cares if it works? That's outdated. Let's do something entirely new. It can be very rash in some ways, in terms of it just wants, it's so revolutionary that it has no concern for what came before. It only sees the future, right? And in some ways, of course, both, you can probably see as I'm just describing these archetypes, the disadvantages and the merits of both of these planets and what they represent in the astrology. And of course, remember, the astrology is just representative of human experience. When I say archetypes, what I'm talking about is that's actually a term that's been used for thousands of years. It dates back to Greek philosophy and Plato and Socrates using, I think Socrates did, but Plato definitely did, using this term archetype. And back in the day, in ancient times, it was the mythological gods and goddesses who were the archetypes of human consciousness. And now, today, there's been an evolution of this term, but today we use it in the Jungian sense, Carl Jung, the psychologist, of the subconscious archetypal mind that all humans share and experience. So when I'm using this term archetype, I'm referring to a shared human experience. So when we have Saturn and Uranus in square to each other, a square is a tense or challenging aspect. And you can see how these energies are already a little bit tense and challenging anyway, right? They're like siblings who are arguing over, no, this is the way we've always done it, this is the best way, versus no, we have to do something different that's stale and outdated, and oh my God, can't you see that nobody's down for that anymore? And Saturn's going, no, there's merit in this, and Uranus is going, no, my God, it's kind of like the old white male dinosaur effect, right? Where it's like, geez, can we just break free into a new paradigm already? That's Uranus. Very visionary, extremely intelligent. The downside of that intelligence is that it can be very condescending. We all know these people who are so smart that they think they're smarter than everybody else. That's the Aquarian Uranus energy. I'm totally susceptible and culpable of that. I have a lot of Aquarian energy, and I have to, through my spiritual practice, constantly, work on this element of that Aquarian higher, mightier than thou, holier than thou. That's what I'm looking for, right? That's the Aquarian archetype. So when these two planets come into square, there is a tension or a clash between what is old and what is new. There's often significant reform, social reform happening at this time, because Uranus is about groups and societies, and Saturn is about rules and law and government. We're seeing that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You can see it when it comes to the C word and the V word. And you can see it just in terms of the political divide generally, especially in the United States, but you can see that in China and Hong Kong. You can see it in Brazil right now. You can see it in France. It's all over the place. There is a lot of social upheaval right now. It is the energy of revolution. That's how it plays out in the greater populace. But I like to talk about you and me. I'm not so interested in looking at how it's playing out in the masses, because whatever's playing out in the masses is what's playing out inside of you. It's what's playing out within your family. And we're so concerned with looking outward all the time, railing against politics, railing against the C and the V word right now, that we don't see how we're doing that inside of ourselves all the time. We don't see where we're clashing, where this square, this 90-degree angle, that's what a square is happening within our, inside of our own psyche. Where are we clashing with the old and the new? Where are we clashing with how things have been done and where we need to make a change? The reason this is such a tense aspect is because Saturn crystallizes. Uranus shocks. We have epiphanies. We have sudden and unexpected events with Uranian energy. And so what Uranus is going to do, it's been doing all year, it's going to do next year, and it's especially going to do it in a pretty magnificent way on the early morning hours of Christmas Eve, is it's going to come in and it's going to break something up, okay? I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because this is the truth. There is a conflict between the old, conflict between the new. Saturn is about maturity. Uranus is about liberation. And there's this pressure. Can you feel it? The pressure that's been building? Pressure. It feels like there's an elephant on the chest, right? An elephant, we'd be dead. But, something heavy on your chest. Some of us do feel like, actually, I know I have felt, I can't take any more. If there's one more thing, I'm just going to collapse. So a lot of us are feeling that right now. That's part of this energy. And so when the exact square happens, there will be a release of that energy. But right now we feel like the flood waters against the dam. And it's our spiritual practice. I'm using the I Ching here. Which hexagram of the I Ching? Can't remember. I'll find it and put it in the description. But one of the hexagrams of the I Ching, which if you don't know the I Ching, it's a Chinese divination tool. I highly recommend it. I have a blog post about it that I'll link as well. The I Ching completely transformed my life and my spiritual practice, and I recommend it almost to every single one of my clients. If you are looking to establish a spiritual practice or to deepen your existing spiritual practice, I recommend the I Ching because it is an oracle. So you approach it with a query in mind, source, God, the sage, please assist me with this particular scenario that I'm encountering in my life. And it will give you, it's divine advice. And you have the ability to reflect on the hexagram that you pull to whatever extent that you would like. Obviously, the more you reflect and contemplate and inquire, the deeper you can go. But I bring this up right now because there's a hexagram, there's 64 hexagrams, and one of them, it talks about the pressure that's building in your life. And it uses the metaphor of the flood approaching the dam. And the I Ching says, it is up to you to direct the flow of energy. So there is this accumulation of energy, and this is the benefit of astrology, is that we know there's an accumulating energy. There is this huge force or pressure, and it requires something in my life to change. Now I can get down with the cosmos and say, I hear you, man. I feel this energy coming. I know something needs to change. I don't want to change. I'm super resistant to it perhaps, or yes, this needs to change. And you can allow that change to happen, even if it's uncomfortable or terrifying, right? Doesn't matter if it's terrifying, uncomfortable, or a welcome, exciting change. You can, like I said, get down to the cosmos and allow it to happen. Allow this energy to permeate your life. It is your spiritual practice that will dictate the tenor of this experience for you. And again, that's not to scare you. I'm not saying, anybody who's watching who's not sitting in meditation every day, I don't want you to turn off the video freaked out like the astrology is going to get you or something like this. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it is through our spiritual practices that we can really cultivate an attitude of acceptance, so that when challenging times come knocking on our door, we are much better equipped to deal with them. And this is a challenging time. I'm not going to lie to you. Most people who are into astrology are pragmatists or realists, and they want the truth. They want to know. They want to understand themselves and life better. And you can't do that if we are always pretending that everything is sunshiny. It's not all rainbows and puppy dogs, as I like to say. And we know that from the last few years. Life has been tremendously difficult, to say the least. We are in a global crisis that is persisting, especially anybody who's watching who lives outside of the United States. You're experiencing it, especially in Asia and Europe. I don't mean to smile about it. It's like Asia and Europe right now, they're getting more lockdowns. In India, the crisis is really severe. So this global crisis isn't ending. We're in a new phase of it. But what the Saturn-Uranus square is helping us understand individually and collectively, because as I said, the collective is a reflective of the individual, and vice versa to some extent. But we are being asked, not asked, the universe is demanding that we make a change. We have to change. The old ways are no longer working. We know this. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, which is the sign of self-love, money, and the environment. Okay. Again, I'm breaking these down into kind of crude generalities just to make the point, because these videos are on the shorter side. So we have Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. And one of the ways that we are seeing this, the old is no longer working, is how we take care of ourselves, right? The pandemic really showed us the ways in which we are running ourselves ragged. How many single mothers do you know who are working full-time jobs and trying to parent with a child who was at home for most of that time, and not just parent, but educate? I don't know many people, especially women, who had children with the anticipation that they would be caring for them full-time while working full-time and then educating them full-time. So this scenario has really shown where our society is broken, where we're not receiving support, where things are simply not sustainable, ways of life that are no longer sustainable, Taurus, ways of life that are no longer serving our best selves, they're not loving or kind to ourselves, which is also Taurus, self-love, self-worth, our value system. I'm always talking about our value systems. What do we value? You know what you value because it's where you spend your time and your energy and your money, and with whom. So right now, with Venus in retrograde, going retrograde, and this Saturn square Uranus, if you are not honest with yourself, Venus in Capricorn, self-reflection, integrity, responsibility, if you can't own up, then you will be given some hard lessons. This isn't a judgment, right? We all have an ego. The ego is a defense mechanism. It's how we navigate life. We have to have an ego. But the ego implements defense mechanisms when we're young to protect us. And then we age and we learn how to navigate life, and we have more resources and tools, hopefully more psychological and emotional wisdom and maturity. And the egoic defense mechanisms are no longer necessary for our life. And so this is a time where we have to say, that way of doing things doesn't serve me. And it doesn't serve those I care about. It doesn't serve my community. It doesn't serve my nation. It doesn't serve the planet on which every nation resides. I don't like to be cliche. I have a lot of Uranian energy, so Uranus doesn't like to be cliche, right? It wants to be innovative. It wants to be revolutionary and rebellious. It's so rebellious. So be careful. I'm going to come back to the thought I had before, but be careful because Uranus is very rebellious. It is the energy I'm going to cut off my nose to spite my face. And this is where Saturn is like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, you fool. Uranus can be very foolish. And I'm bringing this up because in our own lives, we can do that too, where we're so rebellious. We want to break free so badly that we throw out what's good in our bid for freedom, so to speak. So don't be hasty about it, you know? Like really reflect, especially as Venus goes retrograde. It's after the square, but the square is going to kick off more of this Venus retrograde energy, and that it's going to show us where we're not showing up in integrity and where we're not taking responsibility personally and in our relationships. So the cliche thing I was going to say is that the Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see. One of the ways that you can contemplate and reflect and inquire during this time is to think about all the ways that you're constantly criticizing others, the government, the community generally, and reflect to see if you are culpable of those behaviors yourself. Because of course, typically we are projecting all of our shadow onto others around us, right? So we really do, really reflect on that quote, be the change you want to see. If there is something you dislike, how are you doing it differently? Are you doing it differently? If you're out in the world and you're angry about something or you feel something is unjust, how are you perpetrating that same injustice on yourself and those nearest and dearest to you? Because let's be real, we treat the people we love the most the worst. The people we love the most see the ugliest parts of us, for better or worse. Okay, so now is the time to really take really good care of your physical body, your mental, emotional health. Do the meditation. I said this in another video. The Virgo archetype is mind, body, spirit. Yeah, we're not in Virgo season, but it's a reminder to take care of the mind, the body, and the spirit because it is a strenuous time. The end of this month is going to be very strenuous. Take really good care of yourself so that you can navigate the energy with more grace and peacefulness, okay? If you like this video, please subscribe. Please give it a thumbs up. Please comment. I love your comments. I want to know what you're thinking, what your questions are, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again very soon. Ciao, ciao, and happy holidays.